Hi everyone. Um, I keep trying to make podcasts. I don't know what's going on with me at the minute. I am just incapable, apparently, of formulating a coherent sentence. I keep trying to make podcasts about all sorts of things, and I'll get 5 minutes in, 10 minutes in, 20 minutes in, however long, and something will happen, and it will just be like, I can't post that. It will delete itself, or I will just be like, this is bullshit, or I don't know. It's just like, it's weird. I've been through this a few times before. It's almost like writer's block, but kind of speaker's block. I don't know. Um, so I'm going to try again. You'll never know if this doesn't get posted. So this is kind of irrelevant. But I wanted to talk about feelings of codependency, and I actually have a podcast already on codependency that I made years ago, and it was actually what would you call it? Not an interview. Like a, I don't know. I was I did it with one of my old friends, and it was a really well received podcast. I was really happy with it. I actually haven't listened to it back in years. I think maybe I only listened to it the once after I published it, and that might not have even been the whole way through. So if I repeat myself, or if I contradict myself, or I don't know, apologies. I also would just like to say that the person I was when I made that podcast, I also do not ascribe to a lot of the beliefs and behaviours that I did at that point in my life. So take everything I said more than 2 years ago with a pinch of salt. I was probably stoned most of the time that I was making podcasts. So I've been having these feelings recently about codependency in a more mature sense, not in the sense of childlike codependency where you physically can't be apart from someone and, you're super reliant on each other for things, but more in the adult sense of ways that we may engage in codependent behaviours that we perhaps aren't aware of. And one of the things that I've been, I guess, grappling with recently within myself is having someone to speak to. And I guess you could say that maybe that isn't codependency because it's not person specific. I mean, there is one person, my mum, that is like, she always has the answer. And obviously, if I can't get through to her, I have, great friends and a great support system that I can speak to about things. But we had a conversation the other day, and I think she said to me, do you think we're too reliant on each other and do you think it's unhealthy? And she was saying that because when you're sad, it really impacts me and vice versa. And I was like, do you know what? I probably think that we are quite dependent on each other. But I also think that I don't know many of my other friends that have as close. A lot of my friends have really difficult relationships with their parents. So I don't know that I am the best person to kind of cross-reference what looks like a healthy relationship and what doesn't. She is, in my opinion, my rock. She raised me. She gave me everything. She taught me everything I know. Obviously, that is going to be someone that I value as the most important person in my life. And I completely understand if you've come from a family or a background where that's not the case, that wouldn't be the case, and I think that's absolutely fair. I've just been very lucky and very fortunate, but I know that I do have friends where their parents are literally their whole world. And I guess maybe that's not as spoken about in today's day and age because you do see so much media about people that have strained relationships with their parents, which obviously is horrible and so sad, and you don't wish that on anyone. But anyway, we were having this conversation and I said I would rather have the relationship we have where I get worried if you don't answer the phone than not speak to you for 2 weeks. Do you know what I mean? And what set this off is there was something happened like maybe like a month, 2 months ago. I can't really remember. And I couldn't get hold of my mum, and we call the same time every day. And obviously being 10 time zones away, I can't exactly just hop over to the house and go and check that she's all right. My mum has also had a few pretty serious health complications. So obviously that is something that is on my mind quite a lot, as it would be for anyone. You know, if you know someone that has some kind of health situation, it is something that you just naturally consider. And I started to panic because it was just so out of the ordinary. And anyway, it ended up being fine. But I think it was from that point, maybe we both thought like, okay, this reaction isn't like completely 100%. Sorry, I'm drinking my coffee. 100% normal. And then I was thinking about, you know, some of the relationships I have, and about how much I rely on them for peace and comfort. And I think the line between having friends that are a beneficial support system and having friends, or, you know, anyone in your life that is kind of like a crutch and you can't do things without, or you can't move through things without them, is maybe where the issue lies. And that's kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about talking through things with someone, because I'm very much an independent person. I like to be on my own a lot. I'm actually a little bit anti, to be honest. Like, I'm very extroverted and I'm very sociable, but there will be periods where I'm just, you will not see me. And I've always found, you know, I think a lot of people do a lot of processing on their own, but I think a lot of this comes from me maybe not having the strongest understanding of social skills or social situations. I think stemming from the ADHD, not always knowing the best way to operate in a situation, or the best way to like read a situation or interpret a situation. So I think I found comfort in asking people's opinion. And I'm not going to lie to you, when I was younger, this obviously came across as me being a little bitch. It did, you know. I very much have learned that you know, you can't go to someone that is like, I guess, so say involved, or like knows, I guess could be like a conflict of interest. It has to be someone completely separate, which for me is actually very easy, because half of my life is on the other side of the world. So, you know, any issues I face here, whether it be with like landlords or friends or relationships or work struggles, everyone back home is completely independent from that, specifically my mum and my good friends. And so I've found that having that ability, I'm just going to tell my mum not to call me, because if this podcast deletes, I'm going to be really sad. 1 sec. Okay. So like I was saying, I've learned over time, obviously, as you do with any communication style, like you know, you learn over time what works and what doesn't. And I think I've always used my independent time as a way to work on myself. And then I've used my time with friends as a way to understand more about my relationships and my communication, and like, I guess, how I interact with like the external world, if that makes sense. I feel like I put that really in an unnecessarily complicated way. But what I mean is I can do everything that I need to do internally on my own, but then externally, I sort of struggle a little bit about knowing how to navigate things. So that's when I'll like speak to a friend or speak to my mum, whatever. And I find this works for me, you know, this provides a balance for me, and obviously learning to just like not speak to people that are directly involved obviously helps a lot. Really glad I learned that when I was like 16. So the issue being, I've learned a method that works for me, and it's great because, you know, I can work on myself independently. That's absolutely fine. That's perfect. You know, we should all be working on ourselves. But I think there comes to a point where not everything can be psychoanalyzed on your own in your room with your journal, because there's always going to be a perspective that you're going to miss, right? So I try and be very objective. I try and be very like, I don't know, seeing things and whatever. And then, you know, you've gone over something 100 times in your head, and time goes by and whatever, and then you have a conversation with someone down the line about it. This could be someone completely random, and they will give you a piece of and this could be about anything. Like, this could be about a job opportunity, or like a fucking, I don't know, it could be about anything. And they will give you a piece of information, and you're like, how did I not think of that? Like, that was so obvious and so simple for you to think of. How could I not do that? Like, what? I'm so confused. And for me, this is like, I guess what I've always been grappling with is like, I obviously don't just go around telling random people what's going on in my life. Ironic, because I have a podcast, so I kind of do that. But like, I don't go on TikTok live and be like, okay, guys, this happened, what do I do? I mean, you might say that I do. I'm sure there are some people that would actually beg to differ. But in terms of things that actually, you know, are serious and really matter to me, a lot of what I speak about is just kind of like a bit futile sometimes. Yeah, the more serious topics, I go to my friends. What do you then do if that support system is taken away from you? And I guess like maybe a normal person would say they just work through it, but I've never known what that means. Like, you know, when people are like, oh, you just work through it on your own. What does that look like for you? Because I don't understand. Like, I can understand like working through, you know, how I think about it and how I feel about it and how my actions are influencing the situation and blah, 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 like all of that same stuff. But again, that's all me dependent. And I know it's like, you know, the saying goes, you can't change anyone else's behavior or mindset, you can only change your own. But I do honestly think that in quite a lot of situations, specifically external situations, it's not just about you. Does that make sense? Like, obviously it's up to you to have an understanding of the situation and do something proactive to sort it out. But it's not just about you. Like, say for example, you want like a promotion at work, right? And you feel like you've been putting the work in, and you self-reflect and you're like, okay, I could do this more. I don't know, squeeze more work in here, or I don't know, be more attentive here, whatever it is. I don't know. That's all well and good, but you're never going to know that the reason that you might not be getting that promotion is because that person is looking for something that you don't know about or you don't currently possess. And this is, I guess, the issue that lies in communication and confuses me, is how do you have those conversations without coming across as confrontational? And I guess this is why I've always found solace in speaking to others. Like, my method is very much like so my best friend Joe, we bicker all the time. Like, he's like my brother. Like, we bicker all the time, but like, do you know what I mean? Like, if I really needed him, vice versa, it's absolutely like all is forgotten. And, you know, it's never about things that are like, it's just like child's play, whatever. I've lost my train of thought. I can't remember what I was going to say. Oh, well, this is awkward. What are you talking about? Bickering? What? I don't know. I've really forgotten everything that I was going to say. I guess we'll just move swiftly on. Maybe that point wasn't meant to come up yet. Maybe it'll come back to me. I can't remember what I was talking about. I've had a complete mind blank. I guess maybe we'll talk about the codependency a little bit more and see what comes up. Yeah, so I think I've just been feeling a little bit, I guess, stuck on what to do when the people that you go to aren't around. And like for me, most of the time this is because of the fucking 10-hour time difference, which is frustrating to say the least. But yeah, it's so weird. Like, you know, you have an issue. And I think I have learned like a lot of how to deal with this, because obviously it's like if something happens and I tell one of my friends about it, I do have to wait like 8 hours for a response, which is fine. It's definitely not something, I mean, I'm used to it. Obviously I've lived here for like 8 months, but I think I'm finding that I guess like having the realization that I am just really reliant on people for telling me what to do or telling me what's the best move. And that is one of the reasons that I pride myself on having such morally strong friends. And I very much expect my friends to check me. Do you know what I mean? Like, tell me if I'm wrong. Because I'm aware that obviously, like I was saying earlier, like I'm not always going to have the full picture or 100% of the understanding. And I very much don't like a yes man. I will make a podcast on that at some point, but I can't make a podcast on being a yes man without just getting annoyed, which is not the way that I like to operate most of the time, unless I think it's necessary, which I don't think it is for talking about yes men. So I just feel like, you know, my friends, because I value their opinion so highly, I guess maybe it makes me kind of reliant on them. And I guess this is where the whole like codependency conversation comes in, is like, if I don't have their opinion, what do I actually think? And then I guess that poses the question of, can you formulate your own thoughts, or are you just relying on your environment to do it for you? Which further poses the theory that my thoughts aren't my own and they're just a product of my conditioning, which makes me completely wide open to religious extremism. If you really look at it, I could be radicalised by Reform UK tomorrow if my friends were all like that. And, you know, if I put such a great emphasis on my friends and they're saying these things, I'm like, yeah, sure. They could be religious extremists. They could be neo-Nazis. They could be anything, you know. And I'm not saying my friends are neo-Nazis, absolutely not. But if you understand the pipeline, like, this is what I'm saying. Like, I feel like independently within myself, I'm very able to hold my own and formulate my own thoughts and things like that. But when it comes to my external, I really feel like I'm not very good at that. And I'm obviously I'm young and I have like the rest of my life to understand that part of myself and work on it. But what the fuck do I do? Like, I'm realizing right now that I'm wide open for just any kind of, I don't know what the word was going to be. Mental, like, I don't know how you would say it. Mind modeling. That's how I feel in my head that it's making sense. Like, if I trust you, you have the ability to shift my mindset. And I really enjoy and appreciate a new perspective. And like, I actually was saying to, I went to Sydney the other day, and I was saying to this guy, Ben, about how I really like people that can change my mindset on things, and people that are persuasive, and people that, you know, strongly believe in what they believe in, and they can like put forward a point that can make me reconsider something that I've previously not agreed with, or whatever. And I think it's one of those things that is very particular. Like, you know, I don't know why I'm feeling the need to talk about adolescence right now, but if you look at I don't know how we went from codependency to adolescence, but if you look at the like pipeline of red pill men, I mean, I don't know enough about red pill men to probably make like an educated guess or have the proper conversation about it. And I'm aware it's something that is very sensitive, so please do not reference me in your fucking dissertation. I'm not accredited source by any means. But if you look at how these boys become indoctrinated, it is because of very persuasive men. And I actually caught a lot of strays like a few years ago because I compared Andrew Tate to Hitler, and the internet, more specifically the red pill pipeline internet, had a fucking frenzy about it. This was back when I was posting these on TikTok, and I stopped doing that because I was like, oh, everyone hates my content, which is fair enough. You know, you say something like that, you're bound to get backlash. And the point that I was trying to make within that comparison, maybe slightly extreme of a comparison, was that if you're confident enough in what you're saying and you are idyllic enough, people will listen to you. And that is the similarity that I see between Hitler and Andrew Tate. He has something that people can idolize, and he is so confident. He speaks strongly. His message has some power behind it. And I think it's very easy to find that motivational and inspiring. You know, I think tone and body language play a huge part in how a message is received, regardless of if that message is positive or negative. And speaking to my friends who actually have experienced some red pill pipeline messaging online, you know, they say it's a very gradual transition between, you know, 1 minute you're looking up looks maxing, and the next minute it's like, this is why a woman should never leave the house, you know? And it's funny because propaganda, if you want to speak about communication in the lens of propaganda, it has to come from a believable source, you know? So in the past, it was the media or religion. You know, religion was the earliest source of propaganda, be good or you'll go to hell. And then it was media, you know, with racial propaganda or wartime propaganda. And if you look at marketing, you know, influencer propaganda, that might seem slightly extreme because obviously the topics aren't as severe as a fucking genocide. But propaganda, I think, has this mindset of being this like world-renowned, widely published piece of information that is blatantly racist or blatantly lying or blatantly this or blatantly that. But come on, like, the reason propaganda works is because it's underhanded and it's sly. Look at the way that the American government is posting on TikTok right now. Look at the way that they've stopped referring to, actually, what I would like to agree most of the time are legal law-abiding citizens in America and calling them aliens. They are doing that to depersonalize those people. So over time, you begin to condition that imagery and that symbolism with that group of people. It's like what they did to the Jews in the war. It's very easy for your brain to form positive and negative connections towards things. And I understand this has got a lot more political than just me being like, I'm sad because I can't talk to my mum about something. I'm sorry, I don't know why this happens. But propaganda can be interpersonal. You know, it can be between one of your friends. We've all grown up around someone that has so much influence over people's opinion. You know, if you look back to maybe when you were in school, I'm sure you could think of like a mean girl that seemingly everyone listened to, and like everything she said was like just adopted immediately. And maybe not even mean, maybe she just had influence, and maybe she could just persuade people to do things. And I'm not necessarily saying that that's propaganda, because I do think propaganda is typically intended to push a negative agenda about something. But this is the thing, is it's subtle, and it's, you know, it's not always easy to detect. And you look at some of the smartest people in the world get manipulated. And I think, again, kind of going back to what I was saying before about having very strong moral friends, like friends with a strong moral compass, should I say, they have so much power over me. And I think this is maybe why I struggle so much, because I very much, like, I have a lot of like acquaintances, right? But like my inner circle, those people could tell me, you know, jump off a cliff, and I'd do it. And I know that sounds very extreme and very dramatic, but I value my friends' opinions so strongly. And it makes me think, you know, especially coming from someone who doesn't always have the best outlook on things in terms of understanding what's going. I don't know how to explain it. I think if you have ADHD or some kind of neurodivergence, you'll understand what I mean in terms of, I feel like the world kind of speaks in this code language that everyone, if you're neurotypical, you just understand it. And if you're not, it's very confusing and it's very complex. And obviously, you know, you spend all your life learning this like new language, but it's not innate the way it is for other people. And I have a lot of friends who are neurotypical. Obviously I have friends that are neurodivergent as well. But my neurotypical friends will always be like, don't understand what you don't get. Like, this is clear. This is clear to me that this is what's going on. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't they say it like that then? And I'm like, well, because that would be rude. And then it makes sense as why people call you rude, because you, like, I guess maybe you're a bit brazen or a bit brash, or, you know, it's like uncouth to do those things, you know? And I think that's maybe something that I've noticed, and I guess I don't have the answer as to what to do about having that reliance. Because to me, it's like, if you take that away, obviously this is like, what I'm about to say is so unrevolutionary. This is going to blow your mind in a negative way. Wait, no, that's not the right way to say it. This is going to not blow your mind. Like, this is not a crazy statement. But if I had no support system, I genuinely don't know what I would do. Mic drop, I know. Like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm guided so much by my friends. And I make a lot of decisions for myself and like my own inner world and things like that, and like where I'm going to live and what I'm going to do today and things like that. But in terms of like, you know, integrating in with the world, my friends and my relationships and my family, it really is like the be all and end all. And I think maybe I didn't realise, because I do pride myself on being like, I guess, hyper independent, which is not a good thing, but being as independent as I am, you think, well, I'm not codependent. And I think because there's this like, I guess, and this is another thing, like, you know, the buzzword of everything these days. Like, everything's buzzword, everything's trauma, everything's projection, everything's this, everything's that. You know, everything has become fucking therapy speak. Like, oh, have a day off. It's just so annoying. But the thing is, I think what people aren't realizing is that just because it's not that type of projection or codependency or trauma or type of bond or love language, whatever the fuck it is that you're choosing to talk about, it can be so much more nuanced than that. And this is, again, like, even if you any men that are listening, turn off now because you're not going to like what I'm about to say. It's the same as if you look at astrology. You know, you're going to tar it with the same brush because you're viewing it from, one, a media's dumbed down, depersonalized, incorrect view, and two, you're just looking at your fucking sun sign. Like, that's like reading, like trying to learn a language and only learning words that have the letter A in them. You're never gonna know, you're never gonna understand it. Do you know what I mean? And you know, if you're thinking, why the fuck is she talking about astrology? It's important. It is important. Because it's like, in this modern world that we live in, I think we're very good at trying to pretend that we know more than we know. I know fuck all. I know nothing. I am but a child. Me and my friends like to say, I'm 23, so I'm 3 years old, right? I'm 3. Some of my friends are 4. Some of my friends are 5. We are not, you know, we're children in an adult's world trying to navigate it as an adult. And it's very, very confusing. And I think having a little bit more grace and things like that would be very helpful. But I think when we try and learn about these abstract constructs, or, you know, you learn about projection from a fucking 2-minute TikTok video, that's not really conducive of, you know, understanding that phenomenon, you know? Like, it's not, okay, yeah, you've got like the basic idea down, you've got the framework down, but it's very surface level. It's not really what's going on, or it could be part of what's going on. And I think that's kind of, this is the thing, like, when it comes to understanding yourself and understanding your environment and understanding blah, 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 blah. As an adult, I think, you know, when you get into your 20s, life is literally just one big, what is going on? You know, what the fuck is going on? I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to talk to people. I don't know how to work my job. I don't know how to dress myself. I don't know how to brush my teeth. I don't know how to, like, do you know what I mean? It's like, there's always someone, you'll see them doing something and you'll be like, why have I never done it like that? Like, you learn to brush your hair the way that someone taught you to brush your hair. You learn your accent because of the people around you spoke. Everything is just code sharing. You know, if you look at us as, I mean, I very much believe, okay, this is going very abstract now, but I very much believe the human race to just be a really evolved type of bacteria. You know, we just multiply and multiply and multiply and take over the organism that we're currently on and ruin it, which is Earth. And we just code share, you know. You take from the older, wiser organisms and give it to you, and then down again and again and again and again. And so I guess if you put it that way, we're all just doing what we were put on this earth to do, apart from the whole like 9 to 5 and fucking corporate thing saying I literally work in an office job. But like, you know, if you look at the innate behavior is still the same. Our goal is just to pass down information and spread. That is literally it. That is what we do. And I think having people around you that can give you better information. I need to stop talking right now. I think I'm going to get a call and this podcast is going to delete. I might do a part 2. Love you, bye.